Hello there. I'm Tabby from the Unfortunate Horrors Podcast, where me and my girlfriends eat cheese, have pillow fights, and talk about everything. Now's the time to get aroused because you're listening to Jake the Hater and B-Word of the Bleach Bros Podcast.
Welcome into the Bleach Brothers Podcast. This is B-Word, and as usual, I am here with my good buddy Jake. We just came off of a fucking long-ass Super Bowl episode that I'm totally proud of. This episode will come out on the Super Bowl, but if you're listening to this, you're probably not listening to this before you watch Super Bowl, which is totally fine. But man, I'm so proud of that episode. We had some great guests, some killer panelists, just an overall good time.
Same. I'm also proud that you started out the sentence with "I just came." Or we just came, because I'm glad we finally came together, if I can say it that way.
Yeah, I mean, we don't try to cross streams. We try to actually do Morse code with it, just in different patterns, so that way we never intersect each other. But yeah, we just came, 100%.
The best. I love coming with you.
It's interesting.
The smile on your face says it all. And speaking of which, like it's a Valentine's episode, so coming together is a thing. It should be. Right?
It should be.
I mean, But can I ask, one always comes before the other, right?
Oh, 100%.
Now, do you feel in a relationship, because you've had one before, B-Word.
I have?
You've been in them. Yes, you've been in relationships. Do you feel that both people should always come? Not everybody.
I mean,
both people should always come.
I don't think everybody should come. Yeah, I do think that if you're in a relationship with somebody that if they can, like I've been with people who like legitimately can't. And maybe that was me early in my life where I wasn't familiar with how the buttons worked. But I think if you have, I think each person, now it doesn't need to happen every single time. Specifically for both parties. I don't think you have to do it every single time. But I do think that you should reciprocate. I do think that it should be a shared experience. I don't think it should happen every single time.
Okay. I agree with that. I think, yeah, learning curves are another thing. Learning her curves is another thing.
Right.
As you said too, when we were younger, I feel like you're the batteries that women use. And what I mean by that is
like me
that
specifically,
you're powerful. Like the exact type of batteries, like the mascot. Like originally we started as Energizers, right?
Right.
We all know they don't last as long as Duracells.
Right.
So you're a little pink bunny just trying to hump its way into there, and you last all night, right? And then eventually she graduates to a Duracell, a copperhead, a big, nice, big copperhead that finally gets her off. And that's how men are. Men are that way. Like we're just little rabbits trying to hump as much as we can and pump as much as we can. And we don't realize that we just need to sometimes slow down and just make it work.
What if you want to be like the dollar store Panasonics? Like you just want to be able to do the job. You want to be efficient at it. You might not last the longest as far as over time, but you at least get the job done.
If I was doing that, I'm going to pick up a Little Caesars pizza and put Breaking Bad on in the background. And I'll just put it that way. We met at Dollar General, picked up batteries, got some Little Caesars, and we watched Breaking Bad, and all of her favorite things were involved.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So this is a Valentine's episode. For those of you guys that didn't hear the intro correctly, that was our friend Tabs from the Gray's Tap Room podcast. Happy Hour Podcast has changed their name. They now have a new Facebook page. Go ahead and look them up. Follow their page if you're interested in their show, which you should be. But Tabs also is part of I think it's a trio or a quartet, females that get together, and I do not say that negatively, but they have the Unfortunate Horrors Podcast, so make sure to give them a follow too. But yeah, today, Jake, we're talking about all things Valentine's Day. For some reason, 2022 goes by, and we decide that we're not going to do a holiday episode, and all of a sudden, Ben from Jake and Ben Day wants us to do a Halloween episode, or I'm sorry, a Christmas episode, and now all of a sudden we're doing a Valentine's episode, but this is actually, there's a reason behind this, which we'll get into in our final segment. It's because you and I have been talking about doing this final segment for a while. So before we get into that, do you have any stories on your best and or worst Valentine's Day?
Best for me is, to be honest. So a funny little thing about my family, and I'll open up on this, is my family, almost all of us are born 2 days before holidays. And so I'm 2 days before Labor Day. My daughter Lila is 2 days before Christmas. My wife is 2 days before Valentine's Day. And my second daughter, Adeline, was like due date, they give you, was supposed to be July 2nd. And then that didn't happen. And then Steele was supposed to be 2 days before our anniversary, and he came the day after. But it was funny because all those sort of landed that way too. Like the due dates we got were like, there's no way it's 2 days before everything. So I think my favorite Valentine's Day ever was the one I proposed to my wife. And I actually did it. So her birthday was the 12th. I proposed on the 13th, and Valentine's Day was the next day. And I wasn't trying to be cliche in the sense of like, oh, I'll do it on Valentine's Day or her birthday, but I was trying to do something in between to showcase like the whole, like, not weekend, but like those days for her. Like I celebrated her birthday. We went on a hike, which is a fucking hilarious story, which I'm going to get into in a second. But I wanted to propose at that moment, and I don't know why. I didn't think of the holidays. I didn't think of her birthday. I just thought of, this seems like the best time because it's combining both, but making it different as well. Because I feel when people have birthdays or anything close to holidays, other holidays, they get mashed together. Like, my daughter, that was the thing I always learned, like with Lila, don't make Christmas and her birthday the same. Even though it's 2 days before. Now she does get burnout. She has, a ton of grandparents and stuff, and there's a ton of presents and all those things. But my favorite thing about when I proposed to my wife was it's sort of a Valentine's thing where I packed a lunch, right? We were going to go on a hike, and I had the ring and everything, and I had a camera, and I was going to like do this whole thing. And we hiked this mountain in the gorge, and it's called Dog Mountain. This whole trail, and if you get to the top of it, it's a hard hike, but if you get to the top, it's where all the wildflower bloom.
Okay.
And it's fucking beautiful, right? Now, mind you, me being the hater, being a fucking idiot, I packed sushi for lunch on this hike with a bottle of wine. Now, my wife doesn't eat sushi, so I'm going to eat sushi on this hike that I packed, and then her a regular fucking lunch. So we're trying to make it up. Well, the problem is we're also a little out of shape now because we've been dating for a while. So halfway up, I just sit down and go, I want to go back. I don't even want to do this. And she's like, why are we continuing then? And I was like on a mission. I was like, we gotta finish this fucking hike. So we're going up this mountain. So it's not romantic at all. Now I'm just pissed off. I'm trying to get up a mountain. I'm tired. I'm sweating. My wife's like, why don't we just go back to the car and go home? Like, we did a good job. But I had this plan. So we get to the top of the mountain, and I put this blanket out, and everything's going well, right? And at this moment, B-word, the most Pacific Northwest thing happened. A guy, out of nowhere, there's a whole fucking mountain, just comes out of some trees, just walks over. And I'm going to say this as nice, but also as plain as I can say it. This vegan little fuck, okay? He's got his Carhartt plaid, like the beanie, the weird facial hair, like just everything you could picture right now, walks over, right, and goes, great day, huh? And I'm like, yeah. And he sits right next to me, B-word. And I'm not saying like, like a little bit, like as close as a human could get to another human on top of a mountain when there's a whole fucking mountain to be on. Sits right next to me and pulls out a Tupperware full of algae and starts eating it. And I look at him and he goes, oh, I love it up here. And I just go, yeah? And he goes, you trying to do something? And I went, yeah. And he doesn't catch a clue. So all of a sudden now I've already drugged my wife up a mountain. I'm like just, pissed off. So I start gathering all our shit up. She goes, what are you doing? I was like, I want to move to another part of the mountain. So I move up the way. So we get all set up. I get the camera set up. I'm going to propose. And then some more people come out of the woods. And the problem is, B-word, knowing me, they know me. And they go, is that Jake? Is that Jake the hater? And they start yelling that. And I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me right now. And look over, my wife's like, oh, those people know you. I'm just like, God damn it. Can the world give me a break? So I wave and say hi, and I turn around and I look at her, and my wife to this day says it was her favorite thing ever, because I just go, I'm up here to ask you to fucking marry me, but everybody and their goddamn mother's bothering me. So here's your ring. Here's your food. I hope this works out. She goes, this is the most Jake proposal I've ever heard in my life, because you're angry and you're happy at the same time. Also, I went somewhere where there was no service, so she couldn't text anybody for an hour, and it made my life have a little bit of peace. But that's probably my favorite Valentine's story. I didn't mean to make it too long, but it's one of those things, like it's part of Valentine's Day, and it's always important to me.
I get that. I too did the proposal on Valentine's Day, and thank goodness it didn't work. I was engaged afterward for a certain amount of time, at which time we did break up, and thank goodness we broke up. Let's just put it that way. I will say I'm fat, dude. I didn't go up a mountain. Our very first date, ironically, was just in this little podunk restaurant in a small little town close to where we live. And our very first date, we just sat there and we talked and we talked and we talked and we talked and we talked. And we must have been there for hours. We closed the place down. And so I knew that when I was going to propose to her, that I wanted to propose to her there. And it was a nice little steakhouse. And so I had gotten there earlier in the day, and I gave the ring over to the chef, and I said, hey, can you kind of bring this out with the dessert? And they wouldn't do it. And I was like, well, that sucks. And so I was trying to tell the waitress, and she wouldn't do it. And I was like, well, that sucks. And then we're sitting there at the table, and I knew specifically that I wanted to propose to her on Valentine's Day, because that was always like her dream, to be proposed to on Valentine's Day. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm in the restaurant, and we've got this little table, we've got reservations, and it's packed, dude. Like, this whole restaurant's packed. And from in the back of the restaurant, you hear this whole round of applause going on, people cheering and everything. Well, somebody just popped the question, and somebody accepted. And I was like, fucking here we go. And so I just kind of wait, and I drop down, and I start tying my shoe, and she's like, what are you doing? And I'm trying to think, like, how do I pop this ring out, And she goes, what are you doing? And I said, I just had to tie my shoe. I'm sorry. I don't know. I just had to tie my shoe. And so I'm sitting there, and the table across from us, swear to God, dude pops down on his knee, proposes right to this chick. The whole restaurant's in this, they're all round of applause. And I'm like, motherfucker. Now I'm going to be the one who does this, right? So sure enough, I'm on deck. I get down on one knee, and she goes, is it your shoe again? And I reach up with the ring, and I'm like, no, will you marry me? And she's like, oh my God, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And she just really enjoyed it, which, I mean, for the time it was cool, but it wasn't really, like I said, nothing against her. I wish her the best, but it just wasn't something that was going to work out. So, but I am pretty embarrassed that I had to go third in the row of proposals.
Did the restaurant cheer for you?
No, and here's the other reason. They didn't, because the restaurant, most people at this point had their food, and they weren't really worried about it. And so here I am with this little intimate proposal. Nobody recognizes me, and I was like, oh, okay, here we go.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's because, like, if they did it get like lower and lower? Like, everybody's like, oh yeah, fuck, well, somebody stop. I just want to eat my steak. Like, Stop fucking proposing.
Yep.
No, that's funny. I guess the worst one for me, B-word, we'll get into that, is I had I started doing the whole, like, blind date and also online dating for a while.
Okay.
And I had one, and like I said, it didn't land on Valentine's Day, but I had a girl, and I now I realize the signs afterwards, because you know me, I'm pretty fucking dumb and oblivious at times.
French fries.
Yeah, French fries. Thanks, wife. There's a moment where this girl was asking me to, like, our first date, and then I kept realizing, like, she kept asking me around this certain date, and then all of a sudden I finally went, oh, that's near that Valentine. But it was one of those times where, like, Valentine's was going to fall on a Monday, and she was asking me out the Saturday, so all the restaurants were, like, still doing the Valentine's Day stuff on the weekend to correlate. But this was the first time I ever got yelled at by a crazy woman for nothing, like, in the sense of things not, like, happening, like, where I was just standing there, like, in awe. Right. So, like, I'll just paint this. Like, one, I said, yeah, I'll go on a date with you. Like, let's figure this out. And I invite her to one of my favorite bars in town at the time. And it was Teardrop, the Teardrop Lounge. It was shaped like a teardrop. It was this really high end, like, sophisticated mixology bar. I get there, I'm messaging her. All of a sudden, you know, I've been sitting there. Now, mind you, I don't mind. I'm having a few drinks. I know the staff, but like she's 40 minutes late. So I'm like, fuck this. So I get up to leave. As I'm getting to leave, she's texting me. I'm at the front door and I'm like, well, fuck. Now there's one exit to this place. So I'm like, well, now I can't.
Right.
You know what I mean? So she sees me. So I go back. We have another drink. We do that. Then we walk down the road and we go to another tavern and we have some food and everything. Well, no joke. Like she starts talking to me like, you know, what do you do? And we're doing the pleasantries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like she's an accountant and all that. And it starts turning into, well, you know, I'm an accountant. I'm like, okay. And she's like, I would do your taxes better than you. I'm like, well, you should. Like, you're an accountant, right? Like you're good at that stuff. She goes, I was like, and I finally just said, I was like, well, that'd be like if you asked me to make you a cheesecake, I'm going to do a better job than you. I'm a chef. She goes, no, I make a pretty amazing cheesecake. So at this point, I'm starting to catch like, this is not going to go well, right?
She's a one-upper.
I'm not having this. Yeah. So all of a sudden the bill comes and I don't reach for it right away. I'm just sitting there. I'm enjoying I'm trying to enjoy the time, but we're just sitting there, right? We still have some food. We have some drinks. And she goes, if you can't cover it, I got it. And at first I go, well, what do you mean with your accounting skills or... And that joke didn't land. And she goes, I mean, I have the money if you can't. And I'm at that point now it's like that shithead, like, fuck you. I'm just going to take the whole bill anyways. Right. So I cover the bill. Well, at that point, we finally finish. I'm like, I'm going to call it a night. So I go, hey, let me walk you to your car and be a gentleman at least. And she goes, okay. And she points, I'm in that direction. Now, mind you, in Portland, and a lot of cities are like this, but in the area we were in, it's called the Pearl District. All parking's underground. Okay. So she points to walk away, but you can also park on the street. So we just walk, right? And no joke, B-word, we get to an area and she stops and looks down. And I'm not lying about this, B-word. She looks down and I go, what's up? She goes, my car is underneath us.
Oh. And
I go, okay. And I'm standing there like confused. She goes, it's underground. It's underneath our feet. This is the area I parked in.
Okay.
I'm like, well, okay. Like we need to get down to get to your car. So eventually we find the garage and get there and everything. And at this point, she's yelling at me that I walked her to the middle of some concrete area when that was the direction of her car, but I didn't, you know, take her underground that I fucking should have known or whatever, right? So at this point, I'm like, this fucking sucks. I just want to get her to her car and get the fuck out of there, right? Get her to the car. And right when I do, she opens the back door and I'm like, what the fuck is she doing? She goes, so you want to get in? I go, no, I want to go home. And I just left at that point. That was probably the worst Valentine's date I've ever been on because it was like that roller coaster of crazy,
right?
That I didn't know when the ride was going to stop. Like it's like as soon as I thought I can unbuckle my seatbelt, turbulence hit again.
Bad Valentine's dates are just terrible. So a little bit about me. I ended up getting custody of my daughter when she was going into 4th grade, I believe. One of the things that I really chose to do is I wanted to be able to display a healthy relationship skills for her. You know what I mean? And so part of that meant that, hey, if I'm, you know, trying to go out and get all the booty in the world, I need to be a dad and that needs to be a priority. And so there were several times that I, you know, could have had dates or different things that I just chose not to because I needed to be a rock for my daughter. And I'm not going to really talk about her mom and the things that she was going through. But my daughter needed some stability. And so I made an active choice not to date for a while. And I would go and I would do, you know, play around and do all those sort of things with some, you know, different girlfriends and stuff that, you know, we would mutually take care of each other. Let's put it that way. But, you know, Valentine's Day was really not a thing for me. I wasn't in a relationship. I had, like I said, I was engaged to be married to somebody and, you know, it kind of tainted the day when that didn't take place. And so Valentine's Day to me has been very much commercialized, like a lot of holidays in the US. But one of the things that was very important to me was making sure that my daughter had a Valentine, if that made sense. And so for me, I made it very much a day about her. I'd go and I'd buy her some flowers. I would get her some teddy bears or some chocolates or something like that. And I would really say, you know, thank you for being in my life. I'd make a little card for her, usually by hand, and just try to celebrate it with her and make her feel special. Right. And as she got older, obviously that didn't really continue. So for me, Valentine's Day was really cool being able to celebrate it with her like that. But I will tell you, there have been some very, very bad Valentine's dates, one similar to yours, in a sense where we go on a date. We had been on, I don't know, a handful of dates at this point. You know, for us, I mean, we've been on dates where, you know, you're going to get it the first night, right? You're going to go to bed the first night. We've also been on other dates where it just doesn't happen for a while, and that's totally fine, just as long as it's a good conversation. You're moving forward, right? So this is like our 4th or 5th date, and I'm starting to kind of like this girl, and I've been paying the entire time. And this girl had amazing taste in food, amazing taste in wine.
You mean expensive?
Eclectic and expensive. Yes. And so at this point, I'm like $500 into dates at least. Okay. And this is over the course of maybe a month. And, that at the time, that was more than my car payment. And I'm like, okay, this is getting overboard. So, Valentine's Day comes up, and I wasn't going to ask her to pay on Valentine's Day, of course, but Valentine's Day comes up, and we've got reservations at a really nice steakhouse. I mean, we're dressed to the nines. We go in, we sit down, and it starts right from the beginning. The waiter is having a bad day. Whoever was at the table before him or was in his area probably was an asshole to him, which made him an asshole to me. And I wasn't dealing with it. You work in the food industry. It sets a really bad precedent for the next customer, right? And so
it does.
I basically stand my ground. I said, look, man, we're going to do this, and this is the way it's going to be. And if you don't like that, I'm going to need to talk to your manager and blah, blah, blah. And I became a Kyle to a Karen, if that makes sense. And literally this date that I had, who I'd been on a handful of dates, it was almost as if she chopped her hair right into a Karen haircut. She hops in on this guy to the point that I was pissed off at the guy. I'm defending the guy at some point because she is lighting him up one end and down the other. Okay. The restaurant manager comes over and he's talking with us, and she lights him up one side and down the other. At this point, dude, I'm embarrassed. Like, I'm just not having this. Right. And so I look at her and I said, hey, let's just go. We'll stop by the store. I'll grab some steak. We'll, just cook it up at the house. No. We're here. We're dressed here. It's going to happen. So we sit down, and instantly they bring out the bottle of wine, right? Little did I know that this was like a $200 bottle of wine, and she is just guzzling this thing. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm having a glass, no big deal. Next thing you know, she's getting sloppy drunk. She knocks over the bottle, and the bottle goes all over me. It's all over my shirt. It's all in my groin and my pants. It looks like I had my menstrual cycle. And I'm just sitting here going, oh my God, this is terrible. So I get up, and she's like, are you going to leave me now? And she is just belligerent, dude. And I'm like, okay, we're leaving. We're leaving. Let's go. And so I paid for everything that was on the table so far. We didn't even order an entree yet. And I end up leaving. Needless to say, a couple days later, because I didn't talk to her, I was over it. A couple days later, she ends up calling me. She's like, are you mad at me? Are you mad at me still? And I said, well, look, we've been on like a handful of dates at this point, and I've seen this side of you that I don't really like. I'm thankful for the times that we've had together, but I really don't see that I want to move forward with this. And it was very polite.
Yeah.
And she goes, it's because you want it in my pants, isn't it? And I wasn't going to give it up because I'm not giving it up until marriage and blah, 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 blah. And you already have a child and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I have no clue where this is coming from, but thanks for showing me your true colors. And I was like, yeah, that's it. So that by far takes the cake for one of the worst Valentine's days in my history.
So I'm going to ask you two things. The first one's about this one was she one of those quote girls with a Marilyn Monroe picture in the back of her, like, in a room somewhere that says, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. Like, fuck you. Like, she seems like that.
Yeah, she was. I can't tell you if that was the case or not, just because that was many years ago, but it wouldn't shock me if she had the live, laugh, love on the wall. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. You brought up something, and we'll get a little deep, and people might fucking hate us for this, but I don't care. How much should pussy cost? And what I mean by that B word is like, all right, men typically pay. Mm-hmm. We do. Mm-hmm. There has been a shift in that, but our generation, at least, besides the shitheads who came after us, no offense to you listeners, but fuck you guys, you suck. We pay, and we were raised that way. The man takes care of it, opens the door, pulls out a chair, does all those things. However, is for you there a cap? Like you were saying, you spent about $500 and you felt like you should have gotten some pussy by then. I mean, I'm reading between the lines here, B-word. You felt like you should have got some pussy. Am I wrong?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me answer that, but let's go on a real quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. So before we went on commercial, Jake, you were asking me a question.
I paid B-Word $500 for the commercial. I want his pussy.
That's true. So for those listeners that, we don't have any listeners like this, but let's assume that somebody was skipping through the episode. What was your question to me before we went on break?
You were saying you went on this date and you spent about $500, and it seemed like you were implying that you should have gotten laid by then. Now, mind you, I do wonder with men, is there a cap? Like, there's the 3-date rule, right? Like, you can't sleep together until the 3-date. We've heard that rumor with women. You don't do it on the first night, stuff like that. But is there a cap for men? Like, and I think every man's different. Like, is there a limit that you're willing to spend on a girl until you sleep with her? And what is that limit? Like you were saying, this is more than my car payment. So to me, B-Word, that's saying that you will not spend on dates more than you pay for your car per month.
Well, let me rephrase, because I don't want to put
before you get late.
Yeah, I don't want to put a misnomer out there. So let me just rephrase that. So I think that when you're dating somebody, specifically in the early part of it, I am all about paying for the first date. Like, there's no problem with that whatsoever. As a man, I do have kind of a hard time when a woman picks up the bill for the first time, just because we're raised in this chivalrous environment that we need to be able to be the gentleman and to be the breadwinner and to be taken care of, and all the masculine stuff we're taught as kids, right? But on the flip side, I don't think that there is a dollar amount for pussy. So let me put it that way. I don't think that there is an entitlement that comes with it. I think with some guys there probably is. If I'm going to spend $500 on you, I'm going to at least need a blowjob or something. I don't look at it that way. What I do look at it as is, if I'm in this on $500, $1,000, whatever it is, at some point I need you to start stepping up and contributing. I don't think that you need to pay for the vast majority of everything, but I do think that if this is going to be a relationship, it should be something where you contribute sometimes.
Meet halfway.
Yeah. Now, I do not look at pussy as a replacement for money. I've worked.
I was going to say, she's stepping up by taking her pants off.
I look at this from a strictly financial perspective, where, if I make X number of dollars per year and I'm spending Y number of dollars per date, and she makes A number of dollars per year, she can spend B number of dollars per date. And it doesn't mean that that I have to pay and she has to pay, or we go Dutch or anything. What it does mean is that I'm perfectly happy taking you out to a very nice restaurant, entertaining you, enjoying the night, and not getting anything in return. On the flip side, however, if you're interested in this relationship, you should also want to do that too. That's my perspective on it. Now, how much should pussy cost? Well, I used to work for one of the banks that serviced the local brothels, and they typically started right around $900 for, I think, a half an hour or 45 minutes or something like that. Now, let me put it into perspective. I don't have fuck you money. Okay, which means that I don't have the $900 to just spend for 15 minutes of pleasure routinely. That's not going to happen. And so I would definitely not pay for pussy. I will, however, pay for dates. I will, however, pay for water. I'll pay for hotels. I'll pay for beer. I'll pay for baseball games. Like, it's totally fine. If we're in a relationship, if we're dating, I'm totally fine with that. At some point you need to kick in, and and women, if there's a woman still listening to this, women, your pussy is not currency. Please stop using it that way. Please stop just deciding, well, I can exchange my pussy for whatever it is that's going to happen. That is not appropriate. Guys don't like that. The guys that are hitting you up for that, they're doing it for their.
They're not worth it anyway.
They're not worth it anyway.
And bros out there, stop equating that if you pay the bill for the night, that means you get a blowjob.
Yes.
See, I look at it this way, and here's the thing. You know how my brain works, B-Word, and I've shared a little bit on it in the sense of, I don't think no matter how I say it, it's going to sound well. But I look at rate of investment on everything. And what I mean by that is, like, when I was dating my wife, right? Like, when we first started dating. Now, I didn't equate pussy into it, but I equated, like, what return am I getting for what I'm investing into this?
Right.
And that can equate to a lot of things, like love, emotionability, like time back, like, is she paying for dates too? Stuff like that I'm looking at. Am I enjoying my time spent? Like, it's also comes into play with my own emotions. Like, you know what I mean? Like, And so I looked at, like, because I was at that point in my life where I was actually dating to be with somebody forever.
Sure.
Because that's my plan, that I was looking at the rate of return. And I think people equate that nowadays when you're young, that means, oh, if you're not getting it, you're mad. Because, like, I'll never forget my wife. I went over to her place for the first night, but she turned me down so hard, and I ended up sleeping with her dog on a couch.
And physically sleeping with her dog?
Yeah, I just fell asleep and he was laying on the couch.
Okay, I needed to clarify that. My bestiality boy.
Yeah. No, I'm not at the Stone Safe House. No furries here. But it was just funny to me, though, like how, like, she turned me down so hard, and I still felt like the rate of investment was there, where I was like, I'm in. I'm fully in on this. And I think everybody's different and those things come into play. But that's just an interesting point, because I feel like I've seen things where, like, there's always those stupid posts on Facebook or whatever, like, if the guy pays, should the girl do this, or vice versa? Should the guy always pay for the date and all those things? But I don't know. It's an interesting point.
As a guy, I have no problem paying for the first date. Like, let's be honest. No. Now, if I'm on a streak of bad first dates and I'm like 10 dates deep, maybe I take a hiatus, because.
Well, do you feel whoever asks should pay, though? Like, if a girl asks you out?
To a certain extent, I think that more applies to friends. Like, if I asked you out to lunch, I'd pay for lunch. Does that make sense? If I asked you and your wife to dinner, I would offer to pay for dinner. Like, that's where I think that this goes. When it comes to dates, however, I do think, and maybe it's just the chivalry in me or the lack thereof of, my own self-worth, but I do think that men, because I've been conditioned to think this way, have to pay for the first date. Now, if a woman offers to pay for the date, I'll fight her for the bill. But if she wins the bill, then fine. That's fine. I have no problem accepting a gift. Let me put it that way. But I do think that men should at least make the effort. We saw in She-Hulk recently on Disney Plus, when she was doing the online dating stuff, that there was the guy who was like waiting for her to pay the bill because she's an attorney.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just think that that's a really douchey move. I don't care if you're an attorney or if you work at McDonald's. I think that you should make an effort to try to contribute. And for guys specifically, we're raised as we need to be these masculine leaders. And if you're not willing to lead, it's one thing if you're willing to accept the cost of the date. It's another thing to force it upon somebody else. So, long answer to that one. What about you?
Yeah, I think men should pay. I just do. That's just how I was raised, how I feel. I feel like I've asked out more women than women have asked me out. Not that I haven't been asked out a lot, but I'll say this. Usually when I was intending to take them somewhere and do something. And what I mean by that is like to a dinner or to a show, and I should be footing the bill for that.
Yeah.
I've also had it where women have asked me out and then like they've had the tickets already. So they've technically paid for everything. Right.
Sure.
So it's like, I think that's fair to a point.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're inviting me out. You're inviting me for the good time. Mind you, do I think that we're also still in a point of society where men ask women more? Oh yeah. I think it's still 80-20.
Yeah.
I could be wrong on that because of our age and maybe the younger crowd's different, but I still feel that's the way it is. And I could be wrong, but on that point, I love getting gifts for Valentine's, like giving gifts, but I also like receiving a few things. And I'm simple. Like, one of my favorite things to get is chocolates.
Okay.
I love, because I mean, I like food. I like eating things. I like taste. But I love getting chocolates, whether it's a tiny box or it's the big box, or, some people are like, I'm only See's Candy, or I'm only Russell Stouffer, or, whatever. For you, B-Word, is that something you enjoy getting?
The older that I get, the less I like chocolate.
Okay.
It's weird. Like, I like milk chocolate, but when I get the Valentine's box, I don't know what kind of chocolate it is, because a lot of them don't have a directory as to what kind of chocolate I'm going to get. So with that, I'd much rather just fuck off of all of it. I don't want a piece of chocolate, because I'll end up with that nasty ass chocolate cherry in my mouth. And that's not appropriate. It's not acceptable. Nobody should put a fucking cherry in a dark chocolate ever. It's just gross.
That's wrong. But I'll say this, like, so you have to have it. So if I got you a box of chocolates, you would have to have a directory on it. Like you need to know, like this is an orange cream or this is a dark chocolate with nougat. Like you like that part of it, right?
Yeah, you can skip the orange cream. You can skip the chocolate with nougat. You can skip the cherry. You can skip. Just give me fucking chocolate. Just like milk chocolate. Give me chocolate. Like if you gave me like a chocolate heart, like a milk chocolate heart, or if you gave me
like the Dove chocolates?
Yeah, or Dove chocolates or something.
Okay.
Like I'm all about that life. Like that's perfectly fine. The moment that I have texture with my chocolate is the moment that I no longer like chocolate.
Oh, see, that's me. And that's what I love, how now they've made the boxes where it's like all nuts or all like creams. Or I love the truffles and cream chocolates. Like truffle chocolates I think are amazing. Like chocolate truffle, like dark chocolate wrapped around milk chocolate truffle is like one of the best decadent things. But a funny story about that. So my son, I'm starting to realize my 2-year-old son has a very good fucking palate. And what I mean by that is I'm going to go into a few little stories about this, but I made the other night, I made a 40-day dry aged bone-in ribeye steak or New York steak, right? With blue cheese, butter, everything on top, all that. And then I made 2 little small top sirloins for my kids, thinking they're just going to dice up some steak and dip it in sauce or whatever they want. He refused to eat the top sirloin and would only eat the blue cheese crusted 40-day dry aged steak, right? Now, mind you, a couple weeks or a couple months earlier, he fucking ate duck breast with ancho chili rub and all that. Right now, he's 2 years old, right?
Right.
So we just went to Vegas on a vacation, as we talked about, and some family members bought him some chocolates, and they bought him one of those boxes, like, you know, the chocolates, like in the little heart, like, you know, like the 4 chocolates in there that you might get at 7-Eleven or something, right? And my son sat at the table and took a bite and went, nope, gross, and handed it to his grandma, all of them, and then opened his sisters and did the same thing. And they're like, wow, he's pretty picky with chocolate. I said, yeah. And he was so mad that they got him bad chocolate now I realize he's going to be that kid that I have to buy C's or Russell Stowe. I got to find what he likes because he is a chocolate connoisseur. It's good and bad, right? Like I don't want a kid that just eats chicken nuggets and fries all the time. But I also don't want a kid that's going to be so picky that just shits on everything, right?
Yeah, I agree with your kid as far as the texture of those chocolates. Because man, I can tell you what, I'm not a texture guy. As a matter of fact, I don't even like peanuts or almonds or walnuts or anything in chocolate. Let me tell you a real quick story, and then we'll go to break. My ex-wife, her dad didn't have any teeth. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh, I do. I had to help move him out of the hoarding trailer.
Yes.
And I almost puked.
Yeah, it was disgusting. It was disgusting. Well, one of the very first times I met him, I went in and he had a recliner chair, and on the right to his right, he had like this little table that had an ashtray, right? But he wasn't a smoker, but the ashtray was full of peanuts. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. And so he would sit there and he'd watch his programs or whatever. And I was more geared toward, hey, let's go in the bedroom and hang out, you know? And so I come out of the bedroom with my ex-wife, and I see the peanuts, and like, I'm a little hungry, you know? And so like, I go to reach for a peanut, and she smacks my hand and she's like, don't eat those peanuts. I'm like, why? Well, my dude didn't have teeth. And so what he would do is he would buy the Hershey's with the peanuts in it, and he would suck the chocolate off of the peanuts, and then he put the peanuts into the ashtray. And here I was trying to get a peanut out of the fucking ashtray. And that's one of the times that I'm so grateful that I listened to her, because that would have been bad, dude. That would have been absolutely bad.
I'm going to say this. I also helped move that TV tray, and I remember some of the gross shit on there. So thank you. Two, I'm not trying to be your therapist, B-word, but you know, when they say certain things stem from something, I really think you're adverse to chocolate as well is due to that fucking moment in your life.
It's probably true.
Because dude, that is foul.
Oh, dude, it's so bad. So bad.
That is foul.
Well, let's take a real quick break, and we'll be right back with our final segment. Bleach Bros Podcast is proud to align itself with Jerky Pro, a beef jerky manufacturer established by military and paramilitary veterans.
Available in 3-ounce or 1-pound bags with great flavors such as honey glazed, teriyaki, red hot, apple cinnamon, original, peppered, sweet barbecue, and if you're ballsy enough, nuclear.
Be sure to use our promo code to get some of the best jerky on the market. Use Bleach Bros 5, all lowercase, to take advantage of this offer today.
Welcome back to the Bleach Bros Podcast. I brought us in B-word because you almost made everybody puke with your peanut chocolate story. But let's do something that everybody loves. I love, you love, everlasting segments. They're fucking great. The everlasting movie reel for Valentine's edition chick flicks.
Yes. So you
B-word, I love chick flicks. Do you?
Oh, absolutely. You and I have been talking about chick flicks for a long time. We didn't really know where to kind of bring it in for our show, but I think it pairs well with the Valentine's Day discussion, and I think chick flicks and Valentine's is an easy A in my opinion. What do you think?
I do. I hope there wasn't a pun intended that you were talking about that movie with Cat P Mouth, that redhead chick from Crazy Stupid Love. Can't remember her name. Emma Stone, Cat P Mouth. But no, we have talked about this because we both like chick flicks. I think all guys do. And it's funny because it reminds me of our Discord. And if you're not a Patreon member, the Discord is still free. There are rooms that are locked, but be sure to check out our Patreon stuff. We have some really cool segments that come out with that, and you can be part of the Discord. So jump in there. But a lot of the dudes in there, what's a chick flick? What qualifies to a chick? And I fucking hate that. I hate that. It's like, dude, you know what a chick flick is. It's not hard to figure out.
Everybody knows.
It's a movie that chicks dig. It's a movie that you can watch with them for Netflix and chill, or Blockbuster and bust, or just, if you want to have a sappy, like it's like the amalgamation of a crappy high school lifestyle. It's got it up, it's got it down, it's got a hot chick, it's got a hot guy, it's got strife, it's got struggle, and then it's got, stupid comedy moments, right?
Remind me, I think we have to like copyright Blockbuster and bust, because we came up with that. But if that is already taken, I've got a secondary for that. It's Disney Plus and Thrust. So that being the case, we've got chick flicks. I know that you've got a bunch to talk about. I've got a bunch to talk about. What do you have? How many do you have for honorable mention?
2 honorable mentions and top 5 in order, as always. Yours are probably out of order, and I don't know what you got tonight.
Actually, I've got 3 honorable mentions in order, and then I have a top 5 also in order.
Good for you.
Yes.
Good for you. So let me then you go through your top 3 or your 3 honorable mentions, because you have more than me, and then I'll get into mine.
I do.
We'll see if we cross streams.
Miss Congeniality is my number 1 honorable mention. We've talked about Sandra Bullock before, talked about how this is one of her best movies. I think it's a great film. I can watch it any point in time. I just think that there's better chick flicks that are out there. But this one is fun. I also like William Shatner in it. I think he does a really good job. It's one of those that I think just has that feel good storyline that a woman who's not necessarily womanly, if you will, becomes womanly, falls in love. It's got all the factors for a chick flick, and so that's why that makes that part of the list.
My first one is Coyote Ugly.
Oh, that's a great one.
And a lot of people don't probably like. It's one of those ones because here's the thing: when that came out, we were teenagers, so the previews made it seem like it was going to be more
boobies and subies.
Yeah, it seemed like it, right? Because they opened the Coyote Ugly bar in Vegas too, and girls were dancing on the bar. And so it was like, it was portrayed to us like, and I guess the best way to put it is Magic Mike for men at the time, but it's not at all. My girlfriend in high school at the time looked like that at that time. Carly, she reminded me of the main character. But it's a chick flick. I mean, it is. You watch it, and it's the epitome of that.
It's one of the best John Goodman roles too.
Yeah, too. He's just the dad that shows up, and he's disappointed in his daughter, but still proud of her. It's like it's what me and you or you've went through, and I'm going through right now, where you're just looking, going, really, really. But I'm standing by you regardless. But please, why are you wearing that shirt?
And I'll tell you what, dude. Like my daughter, my relationship with my kid is very much like that relationship in Coyote Ugly, to the point that I think if my daughter were ever to become a bartender, like she would try to auction me off. She's always trying to get me to go out and date somebody and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, good pick, man. I'll give you my next one, or my next 2, because you have only 1 honorable mention left. Mm-hmm. I've got Legally Blonde.
Okay.
Legally Blonde, I feel like, well, this is obviously a chick flick. I mean, it's geared towards women. It's got all the things in the bend and the snap, and it's got the little chihuahua, which was really popular at that time, to kind of carry that around in a bag. You've got all the drama associated with it. You've got the predator lawyer teacher guy. You've got these storylines that all kind of work out. You got Stifler's mom in it, so I mean, there's always that too. So Legally Blonde makes my honorable mentions, but my last honorable mention is How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. With Matthew McConaughey and Goldie Hawn's daughter. I completely forgot her name. Kate Hudson. Kate Hudson, let me tell you what. Kate Hudson is a reason why I'm a fan of ass. She has no tits, and I appreciate all of it. She has Subies. I like her Subies. They're very, very little Subies, a couple handfuls. But my man, she is hot. I love me some Kate Hudson. She is gorgeous.
But she has tits now because she bought some.
Did she buy some eventually?
Yeah, she bought titties.
Oh, okay.
Like, she bought some titties, and good for her. And mind you, I liked her both ways. She's smoking to me because the funny thing is mine deals with her cohort in the sense of Matthew McConaughey.
Okay.
It was Failure to Launch.
Okay.
I love Failure to Launch because it's like the stepchild or like the stepbrother of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, in my opinion.
Right.
I remember I went and actually saw that with the travesty. We used to go watch chick flicks together in the theaters all the time. And that's when like Bradley Cooper was before he was Bradley Cooper and big, and Terry Bradshaw's ass is in it.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, it's a funny movie. And the funny thing about your list, B-Word, I think I'm reading it right. And I know you said you were going to say your other one, but I interrupt. But I mean, it's the fact that I think they're all going to be rom-coms, like comedies. I don't think there's going to be some serious ones on it. I could be wrong.
I have 3 serious ones, actually.
Okay,
in my
so
top
I'm
5.
wrong.
In my top
Okay.
5. But the one thing that I will say about Failure to Launch, it was almost interchangeable with How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. And the reason why it wasn't is because I don't like Sarah Jessica Parker. She reminds me of a horse face. And I don't find her attractive. I don't like Sex and the City. Like, it just, consider me a chauvinist and whatever in my words here, but I pay for the first date, so fuck off.
Isn't it Sex and the City?
I don't know.
I know. I used to call her Ice Troll, so I understand your point there. I feel like when she pulls her hair into a bun, it pulls her face tighter. Mm-hmm. But I think that's also why, like I said, it's the step brother or step sister to How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days because Matthew McConaughey's in it, and it's almost in that same vein.
Right.
But good flick. So let's just start then. What's you go down your list? So
I think in a lot of people's list, this might make number 1, but it doesn't make number 1 for me because I found 4 that are better. But The Notebook. The Notebook is quintessential chick flick, right? It's got the drama, it's got the romance, it's got the history. You've got the fighting. It's actually one of the chick flicks. I think one of the first chick flicks that I saw where fighting was actually romantic, like they argued back and forth to the point to like their dying day, right? But this was one of the movies that I actually watched that actually moved me emotionally at the end. And I just thought, wow, this is a really good film. And it was done very well where the persons who are telling the story are actually the people who are in the story. And that was unique, a unique way of storytelling for me. I think The Notebook is great. I think that there's a lot of plot holes in it. But at the end of the day, I think it's a great film. So it's my number 5.
Well, it's funny because I think Nicholas Sparks is going to take over my list. I'll just be upfront there. And that's the writer of The Notebook. But mine is The Lucky One, which is also by Nicholas Sparks, and that's Zac Efron. One thing I love that he has a big German Shepherd named Genesis in it. But I mean, the quintessential story: guy's a Marine, rough, by himself, comes back, due to a picture and everything, and of this woman, and they get together, and it's a romantic story. Is it the best of the best? No. Do I watch it with my wife because she loves it, and I'm a big fan of Zac Efron? Yes, but it's a good movie. I think Nicholas Sparks is the best chick flick writer ever because also I've read his books, and some of the ones on here, I've read the books of them too. And it's phenomenal for what it is. And they do a good job. So I would say The Lucky One's my number 5.
Well, Jake is definitely recording from Gnome's closet tonight. So that's good to know. My number 4 is Crazy Stupid Love. Crazy Stupid Love is a phenomenal film. It's one of those. So the premise is you have Steve Carell's character is getting divorced from his wife, and he's got 2 kids, and it's the struggle of the divorce, and it's the struggle of getting back into dating life. Cat P. Mouth is in there. She's sitting there, and this Steve Carell's character builds a bond with another guy who is a player, and he ends up losing himself in that lifestyle. And then it shows how it affects kind of all of that. Crazy Stupid Love is funny, but I wouldn't call it a rom-com. It's very much a dramedy, I think. And I think it's genuine. There's not a happy ending at the end. It's realistic, but I do think that it's heartfelt, and I appreciated it for that reason.
That was coming out in those times. One, Steve Carell was big. Two, they were really trying to go that realistic route because he also starred in Dan in Real Life. And they were going with those movies like, let's make it it was almost that indie scene that blew up, right? Like indie studio films.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you. Good film. My next one's one that a lot of people probably have never heard of, and it's Whatever It Takes. And it was one of those films that I found, just like when I brought up 100 Girls in here before, where it's one of those, like when I was in high school, found this movie. I just love it. I love watching it. It's the basic story of a guy and a girl are best friends in high school. They're neighbors. She wants to date the hottest guy in school. He wants to date the hottest girl in school, and they end up falling in love with each other at the end. Spoiler alert. Shane West is in it. James Franco's in it. Aaron Walker from Breaking Bad, or is it Aaron Paul? Sorry.
Aaron Paul.
Aaron Paul. He's in it. But her name is Marla Sokoloff. She's got some boobies on her, dude. And holy crap, did I have a crush on this chick. But it's just one of those, it's fun. Like James Franco is the epitome of the hot high school football player douche, and gets tied to a bed and like left in a hotel room on prom night. It's the quintessential high school film, but it was like the B grade to American Pie. So a lot of people have never heard of it. A lot of people haven't seen it, but it's one of those. It was in my Blockbuster and Bust catalog. I'll say that.
Okay.
It was one of those secret weapon films. Okay. Girls would come over and be like, I've never heard of this. I've never seen this. I know all these people. I would love to watch it. And I'd pop it in.
Right.
And it's one of those that people liked it because it's not the worst film on the planet. It's actually pretty good. So that's my number 4.
To kind of kick it back to Crazy Stupid Love, you talked about, your war chest of panty droppers, right? Crazy Stupid Love, Ryan Gosling had a move. Yeah. And the move was the Dirty Dancing move with cat pee mouth. And I do think that that's just funny because every guy has those moves, right? Or has those war chests. Mm-hmm. But to my number 3 is probably a little bit more meaningful to me than just a romantic thing. Cause I don't really feel like it's a romantic thing. It is a chick flick in a sense where it's attracted to women. So women are attracted to this film because it deals with a lot of things that women deal with, not necessarily the romance of it all. It's Steel Magnolias. Steel Magnolias starred Dolly Parton, Sally Field, Julia Roberts. You had a whole bunch of big cast characters that were in there with this overarching story of Julia Roberts' health issues and how that affected her. It starts off at her wedding. It goes through her trying to have children and having children. Sally Field is her mom. It's all centered around this little beauty shop that Dolly Parton runs. Overall, this is a great film. Excellent film. The reason why this movie makes my list and makes my list so high is this was my grandmother's favorite movie. So growing up, I watched this quite a bit on VHS, and it's entertaining, it's funny, but it's very much drama. It's not a rom-com. It's not really even a romantic dramedy, but it is something that I have found that a lot of women enjoy, and it's just a great overall story.
I can feel you on that. I like Steel Magnolias. I guess I didn't put it here because it's like Beaches is one of my favorite films, but I didn't put it on here because to me at the time, it wasn't a chick flick. It was a mom movie, if that makes sense.
Sure.
That was a movie my mom watched and I was younger and I just sit in the room and it was on. My next one you've named, and it's The Notebook.
Okay.
It's the quintessential, like it's not my number 1 because of that fact though too. I mean, I could watch this a lot, but it also got overquoted, overplayed. Yeah. Everybody wanted to do it. When it came out, I loved it. I went to the theater. I also read the book. I will say the book is fucking stellar. And I like it. I mean, I hate seeing things now like the director casted Ryan Gosling because he wasn't good looking. It's like, okay, he's not good looking for actors, but he's like damn better looking than most of us on the street.
Right.
Shut the fuck up.
And his sweaters are made of boyfriend material, according to memes.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a good film. It's a great story. It's awesome. I mean, it almost has that little twist. Like if you don't know about it, you're like, oh, okay, you see it coming, but you don't care.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah. Like you're like, this is what's going to happen, but I'm cool with it. Good film. I mean, that's you throw that on and no girl is unhappy with it.
I agree.
Like that's why it's number 3. So
my number 2 is Pitch Perfect. Funny story about this. Yeah. Funny story about this. I ended up taking my daughter to go see Pitch Perfect, and I had zero expectations on it. I didn't watch the trailer. I didn't know anything about it, and I had a fucking blast. I sat there, and when they're doing the excuse me's and every acapella pun that you can make, I was enjoying the shit out of it, dude. And of course, they're doing this acapella, like, you know, songs that we all grew up to, and these popular songs, and they're just like, I didn't feel like this was a musical, even though people are singing, right? I felt like this was very much a chick flick in a sense that it had the romanticism to a certain level. It had the bond between girls and women. It had all of the drama involved in it. It had a girl trying to figure out what she was passionate about, and this became her passion. And so Pitch Perfect, I thought, was hilarious. I even saw the second and third one. I thought that they were decent, but none of them surpassed the first one. Pitch Perfect, I just really had a really good time watching it. It was one of those ones that me and my daughter really enjoyed.
See, that doesn't surprise me, because that's the type of film I think that B Word would put on a list. Like when I was saying, I think they're going to be all like funny, like romantic movies, and I think mine would get like in the more serious realm. Like you've picked some serious ones, but like I could see you putting that there. Like, would I? No. Do I think Pitch Perfect's a decent movie? Yeah. Do I love it? No. I mean, I can take it or leave it, but my next one's How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Okay.
It's almost number 1 because, and here's the thing. This was hard for me because rewatchability out of my against this and my number 1, I've rewatched this film way more. But I think it's because it's more fun.
Okay.
It's an easy watch. The chemistry they have in the film, Matthew McConaughey and Kate Hudson, is stellar. It's everything you want. Like, are there some lame things like, you know, it's the quintessential like, let's make him a marketing agent. Let's have him have a pool table in his office, and he likes scotch, and his apartment's like gigantic in New York, and he can afford it as a single guy. Like, get the fuck out of here, right? Or frost yourself. Like you're meaning to tell me you wrote a whole fucking movie, right? And the best slogan you can have for a marketing agent in a marketed industry for Hollywood is that's what you came up with in the script. Like, hey, let's come up with something for diamonds. How about frost yourself? Sounds fucking great. Put it in the movie. It's like, get the hell out of here. I will say this. It didn't make my list, and it was a toss-up between these two, and it's weird because it's number 2, right? But it was interchangeable with that and Hitch. Yeah,
I was just going to bring that up. I was going to say, which movie do you like better, that one or Hitch?
Because I like Hitch better, but I'm gonna surprise you with something here in a minute. But Hitch to me is more of a guy's film.
I agree.
It's on the guy spectrum. I think more so from that thing, because it's one of those ones when I've watched it with my wife, I feel that there are sides of the room, and the same thing happens with How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. You watch it, right, and your wife is going towards Kate Hudson's side, like she's right, and guys are like Matthew McConaughey's right. The same thing with Hitch. Like, I don't think Will Smith did anything wrong. Good for him. He has a fucking business. He's teaching guys how to date. Get the fuck out of here. And you know what I mean? And just like in the movie, they're pissed at him. But that's my number 2. I'm going to jump into my number 1.
I think we have the same number 1.
Okay.
And so let me just put it out there. Brokeback Mountain.
No.
Okay, good. Because that's not mine either. Go ahead.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't. I knew you were going to do that because you love to do that to me. That's also if I did it on the guy spectrum. A Walk to Remember.
Oh, that's your number 1? Because I legitimately thought we had the same number 1, but okay.
Love A Walk to. I love
that's such a good film.
I love it. I cry. I don't care. I love that. I have the hugest crush on Mandy Moore still.
Yeah.
That woman can do no wrong. She is aged perfectly. She is cute, quirky, fun, sexy, and sultry at the same time. Like the best giant pretzel with every topping on it, as Michael Scott would order. That is the quintessential best ever. And I know I've said that word too many damn times this episode, but that is the best chick flick in my opinion. There's what's wrong with the damn film? What's wrong with nothing?
Honestly, I'm actually pretty disappointed that I didn't even have it as an honorable mention. There's nothing wrong with that movie. Nothing at all. I think it's a great film. I'm actually pretty disappointed it's not on my list. I could have swore we were going to have the same number 1, and obviously I was being facetious with Brokeback Mountain. My number 1, Sweet Home Alabama.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think it's a great film. I think you can tell that the same director directed Sweet Home Alabama and Hitch and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, just because there are similar actors that kind of play in the same thing.
There's also similar cover art.
Yeah, similar cover art, similar storylines. Yeah, Sweet Home Alabama to me is just really cool. I love damn near everything about it. I quote it often. You have a baby in a bar. Oh, he's on the tit. Like, I think it's fucking great, dude. I think that Sweet Home Alabama did a great job of showing one's roots while also showing their ability to grow. And I like the ending. That's my number one chick flick.
See, the funny thing is we both have number ones that we're both disappointed didn't make our lists. Because I love that film. But I'll say this. In that instance, I was late to the game with Sweet Home Alabama, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I didn't watch it until it's been out for a while. So to me, it's not one that I go back to a lot. But we brought up a point, and before we finish, because I know we went through our lists and the Everlasting Movie Reel, these are what we're putting in there. We've talked about the guy side of this. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say something that's going to sound stupid, but dick flicks. Okay. And what I mean by that is bro films,
bromedies.
Like what are your top 3 B-word? Like if you had to do it on the other end of the spectrum, and you don't have to do Brokeback Mountain, but you get what I mean. Like what top 3 movies are like the epitome of the opposite of this? Like, because women watch these, they're chick flicks, these are date movies, this is what you do. Like guys try to play these to, blockbuster and bust or whatever. But what are movies that you watch that are for the boys, as Josh would say on Saturdays?
Wedding Crashers, I Love You Man, and probably Hitch.
I like that top 3. See, I think we need to talk more about dick flicks in the sense of like, like what guys like. Because my top 3 would be Fanboys, American Pie, and Hitch.
Okay.
In the sense of like Fanboys, I think it's that adventure sort of thing. Yeah. I think it's better than Road Trip. I mean, it's more the nerddom.
Yep.
I love American Pie. We've talked about American Pie. It is our generation's probably best film growing up with. But Hitch is so amazingly done in the sense of it feels from the guy's spectrum.
Yep.
It feels from the guy's sense of mind.
Yep.
While having the date night and doing all that. But no, dick flicks are important, B-word. Dick flicks are important.
Well, eventually, man, we should do some dick flicks. But in the meantime, if you are not a member of our Patreon, we strongly encourage you to check it out. We offer 2 shows every single month, Hippo Happy Hour and the Stain Remover. We also invite you to our Patreon, our Discord. We would love for you to join the conversation in there. Keep the conversation going because it is, at times a little stale if people aren't bringing up some topics. So we would love some new blood, some new topics in there. Also, make sure that you're liking and subscribing and rating us on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And with that, Jake, what do you got for me?
Thanks for all the dirty talk, and come back and get sanitized.